We are in 1 Peter. We are still in chapter 1. There are those who would have us believe that if we are going to remain apart from the world, we need to practice sanctification by isolation. You know what that means, right? Sanctification by isolation means you don't have anything at all to do with anybody who's a believer, right? For fear that you might become tainted. Some of you may be familiar with the name Bill Gothard. And Bill Gothard, remember Bill Gothard? No? You haven't missed anything. He was famous back in the day for something called the Basic Institute of Youth Conflicts. And he would do these big seminars all over the country and stuff. And he just promoted all kinds of values-driven things. You know, long story short, he ended up crashing and burning a few years back, just basically turning into a cult in many ways. And there have been some documentaries that have been done about him, and just really sad stuff. But one of the things that he used to promote was, when I was doing my internship, Pastor Gray, I remember Pastor Gray went to a pastor's conference put on by Gothard. He did it to placate Gothard's sister and brother-in-law, who were the organist and pianist at our church. And they just kept badgering him, and Pastor, we'll buy your ticket to this. Okay, fine, I'll go. Well, the one and only time I ever saw him frustrated and upset about something was after he'd been to that conference. Because Pastor Gray loved children. And one of the things that came out of the conference was we should abolish Sunday schools and youth groups. And everybody should sit with their family and learn together. Because you don't know the other children that your children might be commiserating with, and thereby, if they don't have the same values in their home, your kids could possibly be tainted by worldly children. So, don't risk it. And that was the last time Pastor Gray ever went to any of their conferences. And things just continued to go downhill from there. But this whole idea of, isolationism, nowhere in the Bible do we find that. It does tell us to go and tell, and how are we going to do that if we don't go? Right, in the world, not of the world. Interestingly enough, John chapter 17, which is famously known as the high priestly prayer of Jesus in the garden, Jesus specifically says in his prayer to the Father, I have not asked you to take them, meaning his disciples, and by futuristic reference, us as believers, I have not asked you to take them out of the world, but rather that you would keep them from the evil one. So there's a big difference. I mean, we don't live the Christian life in a bubble. People try it. You're born in a Christian family, you go to a Christian church, you end up going to a Christian day school and a Christian high school, you go to a Christian college or university, you serve in a Christian occupation, and you retire in a Christian retirement community. How have you impacted the world for Jesus? Well, I didn't touch any of it. Oh, well, good for you. You know, we're not, I mean, we're in a battle. We're in a warfare. War is ugly. War is dirty. It's bloody. It's cruel. You get nicks and scars and scratches and wounds and so on. That's all part of that. And that doesn't mean that you have to give over to the enemy. We are supposed to bloom where we're planted, right? So this whole idea of stay away from anybody who doesn't breathe the same air that you do is preposterous at best. Sanctification by isolation. That's just kind of a real funny, strange, selfish concept. It'd be easy for us to think that that God made a mistake by leaving us here. That if it was for us to just become Christians, to be saved, then mission accomplished, and we all ought to be out of here. But God forgot something, or left a few of us behind, or whatever. That would be the thing. But that's not it. The reality is He has left us here for a purpose, and that purpose is that we are to be lights in a dark world. We are to be the light. The story is famously told about Robert Louis Stevenson. Y'all remember him. He wrote Treasure Island and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and a few other things. But when Robert Louis Stevenson was a boy in London, he was looking out the window as the lamp lighter was going along the streets and lighting the gas lamps at night. That's how, they had gas lamps back then. If you've ever been downtown East Grand Rapids, they still have an area called Gaslight Village, and that's what it's, anyway. And his mother asked him what he was doing. He was looking out the window watching this guy, and he says, "I'm watching a man poke holes in the darkness." He was a little kid, he didn't know any better, but every time that man would reach up with the thing and touch the gas jet, and poof, the light would come on. And in an essence, that illustration is like what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be poking holes in the darkness with the light, shining the light. What do we mean by the world? What is the world? It certainly is an ideology. We're not talking about the globe. We're not talking about the universe. Culture, yes. We're talking about a philosophy. Yeah. It is a philosophy. It is a system that finds its origin in the enemy himself. That's the world. It is a figure of speech. It's the word cosmos. It's a figure of speech that encapsulates the mindset and morality of somebody who is a complete unbeliever. What John calls the cosmos. 1 John chapter 2. Verses 15 through 17. Some of us have committed it to memory, right? Love not the world. There's that word, cosmos. Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. For if any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For everything that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. And this world will pass away, and the lust thereof, but whoever does the will of God will abide forever. That's the whole gist of that. It is a world system that is manipulated by the hand of Satan and his demons. It operates apart from and at odds with God. And this philosophy, this system, is designed in such a way as it is supposed to appeal to us. It is supposed to be attractive to us, and it is designed to draw us in and to seduce us with hollow promises of fame and fortune and power and pleasure and blah, blah, blah. And again, Lampwick in the Land of Toys, for you Pinocchio fans. When I was a kid growing up, I sent away for a collection of flytrap plants. And the Venus flytrap was one of my favorites. And my mother thought I was just this sadistic little monster. I would catch these bugs, and while they were still buzzing and living, I would force them into the mouth of the great abyss and watch the plant just kind of go, right? And other times, you just kind of sat there patiently, and the plant would just exude something, and it would attract the flies, and the flies would climb down the throat of the plant, Josh, and there would be no return. Yeah, that's kind of like how the world system is attracted to us. Totally at odds with what God says. Dr. Kenneth Wiest said this about cosmos. He says it refers to an ordered system of which Satan is the head, his fallen angels and demons are his emissaries, and the unsaved of the human race are his subjects. Much of this world system is religious, cultured, refined, and intellectual, but it is anti-God and anti-Christ. It's a part of everything around us. Watch commercials on television. They're designed to do something, aren't they? They're designed to draw us in. They're designed to convince us that we need this product, right? What was that famous commercial? I had a teacher named Don Matheny, and he would always use this example. Costs a little more, but I'm worth it. Remember? Mr. Matheny would say that. Costs a little more, but I'm worth it. All right? So, sure, what they're advertising, every word, every picture, every sound, everything is designed to make you dissatisfied with what you have and make you think that you need whatever that product is. And they're still doing it today. That's the whole idea of marketing. That's what marketers do. Make you want whatever it is that they are selling. The world system, it's not just a television thing, it's everywhere. And it goes on all the time, especially when we're not even thinking about it. And unless we realize how strong that worldly pull is and how subtle the influence is, we're never going to really understand the passion behind what Peter is telling us here in verse 13. Peter says, therefore, gird your minds for action. Be sober in spirit. Fix your hope completely on the grace to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. As obedient children, do not be conformed to the former lusts with which were yours in your ignorance, but like the Holy One who called you, be holy yourselves also in all your behavior, because it is written, you shall be holy, for I am holy. Now that's a pretty tall order. We know that. We can catch something of what Peter is saying. He's basically saying to us, this is not any time for us to relax and kick back. We are in a battle. We are in a cosmic warfare. This isn't the day for us to just be passive. he's really saying forcefully some things here. He says, gird your minds for action. Now look at the verbs. Gird your mind for action. Keep sober. Fix your hope. He basically is saying to us, straighten up. Straighten up. Come to attention. Get serious. And then he says, be holy as I am holy. And there's where we throw our hands up and say, well, that's it. It's impossible. I knew it. Wasn't going to happen. Mm-hmm. Yes. Good point. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very good point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's, I think that is, I mean, you're absolutely right. The antithesis is we can't go to the other extreme and try to win the world by being like the world. And too many places have tried that over time, continue to try that, and my goodness, that dog doesn't hunt. Does not work. Masquerading? Yeah, probably. Um, you wonder what the heart attitude really is. Matter of fact, I'm working with a family right now. They have a son who is in ministry, just got hired into a ministry position, and in a church where there's a pastoral staff. And one of the things that just baffled this kid from the very beginning is that in their staff meetings, they're all cussing and swearing at each other. You know, and cussing and swearing at him. Don't think you're going to come in here and bring your blankety blank Baptist stuff, you know, and change anything, because we have our brand. And, you know, my advice was get out of Dodge as quick as you can. Yeah, yeah. But sad. That's exactly what Russ is talking about. You know, we have people that think, well, if I'm going to, you know, if I'm going to win people for Christ, then, you know, I'm just going to have to be a little bit attractive like everybody else here. I read it. How many of you are reading that paper that comes out now, The Echo? I kind of like it better than the other thing that they had because it does have more information. But one of the things that I saw listed under the happenings, huh? Yeah, they are. They are. That's right. That's right. But at least I would rather deliver substance. Yeah, yeah. But anyway, plus you got more fire starter out of it. I mean, hey, you know, you can't beat that. That's right. Clean more fish with it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I was reading it this week in the happenings, things that are going on in the area, and one of the things that they mentioned was a guys group that is meeting. They're going to be bringing a former NFL player to come and talk about his coming to Christ out of a life of not being a Christian and so on. And then they define themselves. You know, we meet together, we eat together, we drink together, and we find Jesus together. And they do. That's one of their draws that they use is they serve alcohol. You know, and they do that to draw people on the fringes to come and to be exposed to the gospel. Call me old-fashioned. Thank you. Thank you. I can't justify that. I can't wrap my head around that. Now, don't misunderstand. I'm not saying And I'm not saying don't drink, okay? What people do in the privacy of their own home, in moderation, legally, as adults, is between them and the Lord. That's perfectly fine. The Bible doesn't say don't drink. It says don't be drunk. But it also, if you're trying to draw people and you have somebody who's had a problem with alcohol and you throw that out there, what are you doing? What are you doing? Come on. I just don't get it. There was, I remember when we were in Bible school, there was and Kim, you will remember this, there was a group called Stryper. Remember? You went to the concerts. Yeah, okay. I mean, they were the Christian version of Kiss, if you were a Kiss fan, okay? The guys that were all painted up demonically, and they had the big clunky boots and all that kind of stuff, and the guy that had the tongue that was, way too long, and just grotesque stuff, just odd things. Well, Stryper was the same thing, and they would paint themselves up and look gross and all this kind of thing, and their moniker was, "By His stripes we are healed." And so it was their version of that. And I think they were the ones that they had one of their songs was "To Hell with the Devil." And, well, it is accurate. But again, I mean, and I'm not trying to split hairs with all kinds of things. I'm just sharing that there are different examples of things that could be potentially compromising. And it's like, oh, okay, great. Willow Creek Church, Barrington, Illinois, largest church in America for many, many, many years. Huge, miles and miles and miles wide, maybe half an inch deep. And everything done from a perspective where everything was done intentionally, purposefully, professionally. Because they were targeting the professional white-collar people in the greater Chicagoland area to come and to what they formed as what they called seeker services, where that you would come and they would have a professionally paid theatric group that would put on some kind of a dramatic presentation, a professionally paid band that would practice and rehearse all week long, so that it was this unbelievable production. It was like going to a major concert, yes, bless you, venue. And there was no depth. There was no depth at all. It was so that the guy who was from the Fortune 100 company would walk in and be able to see that just like things were in his penthouse job situation, where everything is the very, very best, teak wood imported from Bora Bora and marble floors and all of this kind of stuff, that church was the same thing and could still have that corporate feel and reach out and so on. And so many people led down a primrose path through that ministry, through the Willow Creek Association. Sad. And it goes on and on and on, and we could talk about examples all day long. But how do we do this thing about be holy as I am holy? Be holy as I am holy. Is that even possible? Well, from one standpoint, no. It's not possible. You mean to be holy as God Himself is holy? The one attribute of God that is repeated thrice in Scripture? Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty? Absolutely not. We're never going to achieve that level of holiness. So what is He saying? He's saying that is something that we need to strive for, is this holiness. And he tells us in verse 14 how to do that. First of all, he says we're to do it as obedient children. As obedient children. Isn't that affirming? You know, rather than Peter coming down on us and saying, you bunch of dirty, rotten scoundrels, you need to measure up. You know, you're, like a drill sergeant. Come on, maggots! Get it together! No, it's not that way. He's saying, as obedient, what? Turds? I'm sure you were called other things too, yeah. Okay, yeah. Instead of saying how bad they are, Peter assumes the opposite tactic. And he says, as obedient children, you are obedient children. And so as such, based on the fact that you are obedient children, you have the potential to be obedient children. This is how you are to function. Have you ever found that when it comes to raising your kids, if you promote things positively to a very large degree, they will respond positively? If you tell them how good they are, how excited you are for them, if you are proud of them, if you instill in them a sense that you have confidence in them, you have trust in them, that's the attitude that they will live life with. But if you tell them that they're absolutely no good and they're a bunch of little hellions and this and that and the other thing, well, they think that I'm that way, so I might as well act that way. Now, that's a general rule. It's not absolute that it's going to work out that way, but it does have that potential. There are always those isolated cases where no matter how nice you try to be, there's still little stinkers from time to time, okay? But this is part of what Peter is getting at here when he says these believers of the diaspora, you people that are scattered about throughout the ancient world as obedient children, don't be conformed. You have the potential. You are obedient. So in your obedience, don't let yourself be conformed to this worldly cosmos that is all around us. Don't let it suck you in. Romans 12 and verse 2, right? Do not be conformed to this world, but be what? Transformed by the renewing of your what? Mind. Conformed. When you were a little guy, I mean really little, did you ever play with Play-Doh? Yeah? Bring back memories when I talk about it? No? Vicious memories, okay. Did you ever have those little Play-Doh molds, or maybe your sisters did? They probably had one of those Barbie things where you shove the Play-Doh in Barbie's head and you squeeze the handle and this god-awful color of hair just kind of squirts out all over the place. That's being conformed. The word means to be pressed into a mold. Okay? And so Paul says in Romans, do not be conformed to this world. In other words, don't let the world press you into its mold, is how the Living Bible translates it. But rather, be transformed. When you were a little bit older and you weren't into Play-Doh things anymore, did you ever catch caterpillars and put them in a thing and watch them turn into butterflies? No, you didn't make them live that long. You just little beasts and threw them all over the place and stomped them like the bug that they were. You're a guy, I understand. Okay, but anyway, you see a chrysalis that is formed, and that chrysalis becomes a butterfly. That is a transformation. It began as one thing. The word transformed is the word metamorphe. We get our word metamorphosis from that. So be completely transformed, changed from the inside out is the idea. Do not be pressed into the mold of the world, rather be transformed from the inside out. And that's what he's getting at. So how do we become holy like God is holy? We, as obedient children, we resist being pressed into the world's mold. Don't be woke. Yeah. Don't be woke. Oh, my goodness, conformed. You better believe it's conformed. And then some. Think about it from this perspective. Have you been a Christian so long that you forgot what it was like to be without Jesus? For me, that's a hard concept because I was the proverbial Sunday school Charlie. From my first breath, I was brought up in a Christian home, and I was brought to church, and I was raised in Sunday school, and it was, I was 10 years old, I trusted Jesus as my Savior, and on and on and on and on. So I really don't know, I don't have anything that I can compare it to outside of what I know the Bible says about it, the fact that outside of Christ you are dead in trespasses and sins, and you're enemy of God, and so on. But I didn't think that way. I didn't know any better. But if in our different stages of life and in coming to faith in Jesus, if we can remember back, have we been Christians so long that we've forgotten what it was like? Yeah. It's exactly what it is, taken for granted. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? Yep. Yep. Absolutely true. Why do we do that? Laura raises a very good point, and we'll close on this note. Why do we do that? Why do we, for lack of a better term, walk away for a while? It's not like we're leaving the faith, but why do we tend to spin around and desperate times call for desperate measures, and we just kind of put it on the back burner and go back and play in the filth of the world for a while? What makes us do that? Yes, I know we have a sin nature. Okay, those are the givens. But what makes us do those things? Sure. Yes. Now that's part of being Americana, okay? Our Americana background says, I will take care of it myself. We are independent. We will pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps because we're Americans. Sure. But there's another part of that, and I think a lot of it is closer to do with, and Laura alluded to this, is, there comes a point in time where, we're at that crossroad and we are facing that decision of whether or not to trust Christ, which oftentimes involves waiting for His timing and for His best, or we take matters into our own hands. So I tend to think a lot of it has to do with this whole idea of control. We are all, to a certain degree, by nature, control freaks. We like to be in control. And when we're in control, we feel comfortable. When we're in control, we know what to expect. When we're in control, we have it all laid out. Instead of waiting upon God's timing and for God to tell us what He hasn't told us yet, so we don't know. How many of you just love to go somewhere and do something without knowing what it is? How many of you just love those surprises? Oh, we're going to go do something? Oh, great. What are we going to do? I don't know. Oh, that'll be fun. No, we don't do that. I mean, we want to know, don't we, Josh? We want to know right up front, man. I mean, hey, where are we going? I got to make sure I have the look. Okay? Man, if I'm not styled for it, forget it. I'm not going. It's great when you're a kid. You know, when you're little, you don't really care about those kind of surprises. I mean, our kids, we spoiled them, and every so often, you know, we'd put the kids to bed, and about a half an hour later, we'd go wake them up and say, "Pajama ride!" And we all got our pajamas on, and we would just go out for a ride. Typically, the ride would end up at Dairy Queen. But they still talk about that to this day. You know, pajama ride. Oh, we'd have those surprises. We'd go on a pajama ride. You know, I bet at this stage in life, you probably really don't care if you want a pajama ride, do you, Josh? Yeah. Don't come to your house, Cliff? Okay. Well, they lock the gates at 9 o'clock down your way, so yeah. That's right. Hmm. Yes. Yes. Right. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Sure. That's right. Yes. Yep. Hmm. Hmm. Right. Well, because you get to the heat of the moment and it's too late to make a decision then. You're not going to stop and decide, should I do this or should I not do this? Not then. You're absolutely right. A lot of this is headed off at the pass if we can make our convictions and make our decisions ahead of time so that when we do face those impasses and intersections, we already know how we're going to choose. You know, Eric teaches gun safety. And one of the things that Eric teaches about gun safety and so on is muscle memory. There are certain things that you must train to be able to do so that push come to shove, you're in a certain position, you are automatically going to do the right thing. You know, that's part of training, preparing ahead of time for those instances. And the same thing is true spiritually speaking. Well, we're going to hold it there, and we'll get back in a couple of weeks, because next week we're going to celebrate with Ken and Em, and that'll be fun. All right?